Welcome to the Mines climbing tutorial. Before I continue, I want to thank Games a lot for his shoutout and support. Cheers, man. And I want to make another arty compilation. What I need is your 9.18 replays where you drive the tier 10 Batchat in a random battle and you get hit directly by an enemy artillery. No splash, as the sound from splashing isn't what I'm looking for. Email it to xaneleongaming@gmail.com. Please don't send me private messages as I am no longer playing the game. A massive thanks to all of you and all your help. This tutorial will tell you about all the following climbs: J9, Norville or D6, B8 and A5. In Climbing 101 I already covered how you should do the perfect T0 climb, so watch that if you want to know how. As we're looking at the countdown, did you see what crew I had in my garage? That's right. It's a 75% crew. Now, I did this because loads of people come up to me and ask if they really need skill X or skill Y. To be honest, the tank is more important than the crew driving it. Sure, sometimes you need to min-max in order to get up a certain slope, but this is meant for random battles, so it should be quick and relatively easy. Well, easy after you've seen this tutorial, of course. You shouldn't retrain your crew just to be able to climb, that's not needed at all. Before we do anything, I want to explain how to do J9. What I see people do wrong the most is trying to align their approach at the bottom of the slope. But climbing is all about being consistent, so we'll be using tricks to stay consistent. My trick is to align yourself towards the slope using dish push, and as you're driving towards the slope, concentrate on your angle and carefully adjust. This should give you plenty of time to adjust and get a perfect approach. Like that. And then the climb is super easy. Well, let's take a closer look. You don't want to go too far to the left, as this slope is just too steep to maintain your speed towards the second part. Nor do you want to go too far right, as you will make it up, but most of the time sacrifice too much speed in order to do so. And after that, after you go up, you enter this area. If you're here, then you're basically too low. But with all the speed you got from the first part, you can easily make it up and over the top. The trick is to align yourself correctly. Ace the first part and use that speed to gain height at the second part. Only steer left at the very end. If you can't make it, stop, reverse and gain that much needed speed to make it over that last part. That might have gone too fast to see what went wrong. Let's show that again at half the speed. So you think the approach is good, between the house and a tree, aimed at the right spot, but notice how the T67 slams to the ground just before the slope. This means that the difference in steepness was too big for the tank. In order to solve this, you should use an approach slightly to the right where the slope is a little more gentle. Now that we have the technical details down, I've picked 3 successes and 3 failures. We'll analyze all of them one by one. People like to know what went wrong when they do a certain climb, so I'm gonna show you. First up we have this approach. The angle looks good, no? Well, it's not. The thing that went wrong is this. With an angle like this, you will lose too much speed, combined with me pressing a little too much A at the start. Even I make mistakes. To solve this, either do a slightly shallower approach or a little less A, and reverse at the second part. This second try you can see what happens when you don't press A enough at the start. You will not have your tank aligned with the direction it is going and you'll lose speed because of it. It's simple dynamics. The third fail shows you what happens if you take a too steep approach. It will result in you losing too much speed by wanting to go directly up a slope that is too steep. Here's the successes. First up, the perfect J9, by only pressing A and of course W. I want to get the best angle possible. What I do is I aim for the line that divides the grass and the rock. If you go between the tree and the house in the beginning and you'll align yourself like this, you will almost always have a guaranteed success. And next up you'll have to angle your tank on the slope to the left, so you'll be facing the same direction as you're driving. This will ensure you maintain the speed you need for the second part of the climb. After that, use the speed from the first part and steer left about 75% into the climb. What you have to practice the most here is the alignment. This can be a real pain if the traverse of your tank is really high or if you have lag. Then you just have to get a feeling of how long you need to steer left for every tank to align with the direction you're moving. Oversteering is better than under in this regard. For a perfect climb you won't steer a lot, as you've seen. The second success is a little bit more to the right than the perfect approach. As you will see, you will solve that by pressing more A than in the first success. And finally, the third approach is something that can be done with high-speed, high-traction vehicles, like the T67. You can take an approach forward to the right, and this requires speed. Now you have to face the slope at a different angle. This means you'll have to use your traction and speed to overcome this obstacle. It's basically a wider margin of error for J9 for certain tanks. Remember, this is all done with a 75% crew. Now we have the North Hill climb. This climb is extremely useful in randoms, clan wars and strongholds. Master this one and literally everyone wants you on their team. This climb is kinda like the J9, that you want to do the first part perfectly in order to make the second part easier with the speed to maintain. The first part is always the same. It will depend on what tank you use in regards to handling the second part correctly. First an example with some graphical knowledge, because who doesn't love animated stuff? You go up near a grassy patch just besides the rock, then turn left a bit in order to drive slightly up the second part to maintain traction and wiggle a bit. More wiggling is needed for higher turning speeds. What I found out worked with, for example, the lightweight. You have to press D and immediately A just before crossing the ridge at the second part. This will result in your tank going straight, but if you slack only a little bit, your tank will turn like 20 degrees or more towards the slope and you won't make it across. We want to master this climb, so I'll give you some tips. Make speed and move towards the rock, and stay in between the green lines and you will have more than enough speed to make it towards the second part. Up we go, we steer left, we steer right. A little wiggle. There you are. This next approach is almost the boundary of a speedy climb on the northern side of the hill. As you can see, I lose loads of speed at the beginning. Steer down and up the slope to make it over the second part without too much trouble. This is really easy with a T67, even with a 75% crew. I also managed to get up at an almost impossible angle. I wouldn't try to reproduce and learn this, but it's still funny to show nonetheless. Oh, and 0 HP drop is also a nice welcome. Now I'll show you guys the most left approach one can take without screwing up too much. And that happened. When playing a random battle and the enemy has more presence on the hill, use this OP tactic. You can go down onto the climb and back up with proper movement. Do take note, you need speed in order to clear the gap. If you don't have speed, then you'll just slide down. Let's take a look at the B8 climb. Notice what the terrain looks like. We start at this height, go down with momentum and then climb up the slope. This extra momentum of going down the terrain and accelerating massively helps with the climb, as you will be reaching top speed all the time before reaching the actual slope. This is why you can't do this from the other side of the slope. Now let's zoom in on the slope itself. A point of focus I am keen to using is the white spot on the slope right here. But how do I angle myself, you may ask? Well, I positioned myself between the house and the tree earlier. If you then aim with the left side of your tank at the white spot I pointed out, then you'll have the correct approach. Remember, climbing is all about being consistent. This works for me and probably also for you. Everyone has their own preferences, perhaps even easier ways. This is just how I do it in my tanks. In order to make this climb successfully, you want to turn left at the start of the slope to avoid the steepness of it and losing speed. If your tank turns slow, then this means you'll have a larger margin of error, making it easier. In this first example, I want you guys to pay attention to what went wrong. I pressed the A button too late with the incorrect angle. It could work, but then you would have to have an approach more to the right of the current one, approximately half a meter to the right. Looking at the slope means looking at its steepness on all parts. Notice in this picture that you can surf with a swirl to the left like this. You can choose to avoid this steep part over here or just go over it with high speed. And that's the secret behind this climb. Here's what happens if you don't press left enough and a little right. And this is how you do it. Notice how in this approach the speed you maintain is much less than the previous one. Let's take a look at the difference. The difference between the approaches is really small. As a goat, you're working with almost no margin of error at times. This is what makes it hard. As you can see, I press A a fraction of a second earlier in the faster climb. After you manage that climb, you can go further and into shooting positions in 3 different ways. Here you'll see the fastest and generally harder one. Only this part is hard, namely to traverse just between those 2 rocks to maintain traction and speed. Now we go down and do the second way. Going down is always fun. This one is a bit harder because of the narrow slope near the tree at which you can traverse. And finally the third way of going up. This is also the most dangerous way, as people from E7, E8 position will generally spot and shoot you on your way up. Also be careful going up here. If the enemy has the hill, it's risky to go up. But once you're up, you can farm, which is nice. Last and definitely least, A5 climb. You start over here, and if you have a heavy tank, smash those walls and dodge the tree, and if you have a light tank, go around and turn at the last possible second onto the slope. Go up, put your left track on the L and the right track on the R, and easy. There's not a lot to this climb. Let's check how easily it's done. And that's it. This tutorial should have taught you all about the most common and useful climbs on mines. Do you have any feedback for me? What would you like to see improved, or what do you want to know? Just write me in the comments below. Do take note, I have no clue how the new lights in 9.18 climb, as I have not played at all this patch. You can always go to my map videos and check out all the climbs. Most people miss the new climbs added with each missed climb, so be sure to check those out too. And as a final word to say, I've been focusing a lot solely on my studies the past months, so that's why I haven't been as active as before. Be sure to see more of me after my final exams at the start of July. Thanks for watching, and Have a great day.